Hey, this is Sven at Manticore Arms. I'm the owner and president of the company, and we're here for Q&A number 1. Hopefully there'll be many more after it. I've got 4 pages of questions here. So, yeah, let's just dig right in, why don't we? All right. Brad W., will you make a metal spring rod for the Tavor 7? And will you make an awesome trigger pack for the Tavor 7? All right, Brad. It's a good question. So the metal spring rod, that probably gets into an issue of how do we choose what to make? So the way we choose products to make are either I internally come up with some ideas or somebody here internally comes up with an idea and we explore it, or we'll have customers email us, just like you did, to ask if we'd make a spring rod. What usually determines, though, if we go forward, besides any practical issues of the actual design being feasible, is how many people email us asking about a product. So, if we had a bunch of people saying, hey, make a charging handle for this new gun, if we're getting dozens or more emails, that generally leads us to understand there's a market desire for that product. So that's something we'd have a tendency to make. In your case, we've only gotten the one email from you asking for the metal spring rod for the Tavor 7. And I'm assuming the reason you're asking this question is the existing spring rod is plastic. And there's a perception that plastic is weaker than aluminum or metal, whether it's steel or some other metal that we'd use depending on the construction method. So the question is there an inherent problem with the existing spring rod? And I haven't heard of any failures on those or bends or anything like that, even though it's plastic. So at the moment, I don't think we would approach that as a product. Now, if there's a lot of people who want it, if people watching this video, if any of you are watching right now and say, oh, wow, you know what? I want one of those too. Hey, just send us an email to info at Manticore Arms. And that's the best way to let us know that you're actually interested in a product and to give us a feedback cycle. So, that's a lot of times how things get made. The other question was, the trigger pack. So triggers and barrels, we'll say, are two kind of unique products outside of a lot of product development. They have their own peculiarities. Man, that didn't come out right, but their own unique set of design features and challenges. So as far as a Tavor 7 trigger pack, I believe that Jard already makes one. I'm not, I didn't check before I started filming this. I don't think Geisley makes one yet. It wouldn't surprise me if one comes out eventually, if the numbers are there with the production of the gun. Timney, Shooting Sight, all companies that make trigger packs, and I'm sure at least one or two of them already offer one. So trigger packs, because of the interaction of the components, because of some liability issues, I can design them. I have designed modifications of trigger packs with some other products, the CZ Scorpion Bullpup being an example of one, where we had a linkage and I had to figure out how to make that all work and be drop safe and reset and everything like that. But the actual hammer, disconnector, and trigger itself, the 3 components that usually go together to make a standard hammer-fired trigger group, I do not have a ton of experience with that, and the geometry is critical, especially when you're trying to make it better. Making a mil-spec one, it's not too hard to make those, but to make it perform better and still be reliable, drop safe, all these features, and to get the feel of, okay, it's very short pull with no issue with creep or reset or anything like that. That's something that I just do not have that high level of experience that somebody like Art at Shooting Sight or Bill Geisley would have. Those are guys that actually started doing CMP matches, the Port Clinton shooting competition, and wanted that trigger that just gives you every edge because they were shooting at the extreme on a firearm. And I know we wandered off a little bit here, but I think it's important to explain the why I haven't looked at it yet. I don't think I can do anything better than those guys could. And there's a lot of potential liability and testing in it that it's not that I wouldn't be willing to do it, but if somebody else can do it better, it makes it a hard argument to want to do that. So would I love to do trigger packs? Sure, but I think I need, if we're talking about my skill set, that is something that and manufacturing barrels from scratch, which is the other thing I mentioned, those are very particular skill sets that you build up over a very long time of experience. And those are two things that I could do it, but I feel there are other people better equipped to do it. So I believe that answers that question. Okay, so next question, Nate J. When is the folding charging handle for the Tavor 7 going to be available? So anybody who's watched our instructional videos, I believe it's the Hammerhead forend video, you may have noticed that there was a folding charging handle on the Tavor 7 in that video. And we get emails about this, and every couple of weeks somebody will notice it, even though we've never made a reference to it anywhere. So I was filming that instructional video, I believe it was late at night, and I just completely forgot to take that prototype off the gun. A lot of our in-house guns will have prototypes in process on it, and then I try to reconfigure the gun back to the original configuration as much as possible to not show things like that, because we don't like to launch products before they're ready or show something because maybe it doesn't work out. And the Tavor 7 charging handle is one of those. So that charging handle, it's a switchback style like our other ones, worked great. It worked amazingly well on with our Hammerhead forend. And then just our Hammerhead forend is designed that there's the same latch point and mechanism that holds the charging handle in the forward position. And just to make sure, I of course switched the handguards out to the OEM one. And we found that occasionally the handle would flip out from recoil. And it has to do with just some very, very, very subtle differences in how some of the components are shaped that interact with the charging handle on that. And I thought, okay, no big deal, we'll fix that easy. I made some adjustments and it didn't fix it. And then when I made those adjustments, then we found we started having issues with also the Hammerhead forend where the handle would flip out. The issue is there is a very complicated piece that is used to latch the OEM charging handle, and that's not the problem. The problem is integrating that into a folding charging handle in a way that there's multiple springs and pins doing things, they're all doing their own thing, and they all do it in a very tiny space. So I think we're on revision 5 of the Tavor 7 folding charging handle at this point. And sometimes when you get stuck on a project, it's best to just sit it down and walk away from it for a bit. In fact, I was working on something else today, getting a bit frustrated, and my wife, Mrs. Manticore, we'll call her, works here at the shop with us. And she saw me getting frustrated, and she gave me the best advice. She said, you know what? Just walk away from it. There's plenty other stuff to do. There's plenty other things you can work on today. Walk away, come back in a couple of days and look at it. And sometimes it's just in your brain letting things mull over. A lot of times I find actually when I sleep, sometimes I'll wake up and my brain has taken these pieces and put them together in a new way I hadn't thought about, can solve the issue. So that's what's up with the Tavor 7 switchback charging handle. We're still working on it. It's been a while, and it's just a tough problem to solve because quite simply, the recoil of the Tavor 7 is so much higher than a standard .556 caliber rifle, and that there's some geometry we're basically fighting against. We're trying to make something do that it doesn't really want to do, and try to make it so it's functional and reliable. And I don't want to launch a product till we're happy with how it functions and gives more function to the gun instead of it gives you this thing, but you're trading off for this problem with it that doesn't always, it doesn't always stay folded, which is kind of the point. All right, so on to the next question. Mark W. Other than your current other than your current product lines for the Tavor 7 and Tavor TS12, do you have any more items in the pipeline? So the simple answer to that is yes, we have more items in the pipeline. And as we go through this video, you may tell I don't talk about what is in development behind the scenes too much. And that was based on a hard lesson I learned some years ago when the company was pretty early. I had shown off a picture to get some feedback, and sometimes I do that, of where we were on developing a product. And I'm not going to name the product because it would lead back to who had done what. Another company saw that product, and by the time I had developed it farther and got to the final where we wanted to be, the other company beat us to launch on our own product by about, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks. And that hurt our sales pretty bad in that, because there was nothing else there was no other product that did this at the time. And it was very obvious to me that they had simply looked at what I had done in that prototype because of where we had taken the development after that, that they had simply copied my homework and knocked the product out. And because they were faster to get to production, probably because they hadn't done any R&D on it, and there was reasons I made changes, it beat us to market. So it cost us money. It cost us sales. And that's why I typically don't talk about what's coming. As far as Mark W., with your question, I'm not avoiding the question, but I think as we go down the list of Q&A, I'll answer some more directly what we're working on. I can say we are looking at Hellion stuff right now. That's probably one of the bigger ones we're looking at. We have some internal original stuff that I know that sounds very vague, but it's not just aftermarket parts. There's some other things I'm looking at. I don't know if we're going to continue to develop that internally and launch it as an internal product, or if we may approach another company to partner up or something like that. But I can say we have, when it's minor products, as in the sense of an add-on aftermarket component, there's always at least a dozen in various stages of development. And there are I usually try to have 1 to 3 what I'd call big projects, which are, whether it's a mold in the works for something or something internal it's more than just an add-on component, it's something bigger going on. And some of those have gone on to be manufactured by other companies. Some of those are internal things we've done that you may or may not have seen. But yeah, I guess that answers the question in a very long fashion. Yes, we have plenty going on all the time. Just because we haven't launched anything new does not mean there isn't always things going on. All right. Michael D., when are you bringing out your German rain camo sling again? Great question, Michael. Well, I dug around in the shop and I found one. So Michael, actually I found a few of them. Michael, I'm going to reach out to you after I post this video in the next few days, and we will make sure you get one of these slings. So you can see it's the German Stricktarn camo. It's one of our 2-point slings made for us by Zulu Nylon Gear. We offer those slings in green, tan, wolf gray, and black as the standard colors. But sometimes when I find interesting camo patterns, Joel over there, who's a really good friend of mine, will sew us up small batches. I'll get some of the fabric, and then we do custom ones. So some other colors we have as special editions is we've got the Australian jelly bean camo or rabbit camo, the Auscam or DPCU. There's like a million names for it. I don't even think they know the name of their own product. Great if you have an Australian OG clone you're working on. We've still got some of our M90 Desert, which is Swedish desert camo, and you're probably thinking, Swedes were in the desert? Yep, they are out there deployed in Afghanistan just like everybody else at some point. Still have some of those left. The Forest Pattern M90 Splinter Cam is like my favorite camo pattern, and those slings are long gone. We did 2 batches of those because we were able to get some more fabric. Our most recent one here is Miami Tiger. So if you like the 1980s, Miami Vice, Phil Collins in the air tonight and you want to jazz up your gun for competition or just for fun, there you go. You can see crazy pattern. And that one just launched. So these color patterns they're special edition, as in we do them once and then they're done. The only exception to that had been when Swedish M90 camo, we sold them so fast and I wanted a few for myself. We were able to locate a little more fabric and make them up. So yeah, but I like to launch fun slings once in a while. I just think it's a neat thing, you know, something a little different. You can stand out or have a camo pattern that you really like on your gun, you know, camo the gun to match the sling. So yeah, that's what's up with the slings, and Michael, we'll get a hold of you. Shane C., what brought you to North Charleston? Legal stuff brought us to North Charleston, South Carolina specifically, and North Charleston's a little deeper in the story. So we were located in Illinois. I'm from Illinois. I was born there, grew up there. My shop and my home were 15 miles from where I was born and lived until I went off to college. My parents are still there. We got a lot of family still there and friends. And I never had any intent to move Manticore Arms out of Illinois. And I know a lot of people thinking, oh, Illinois is a terrible state. Illinois is a great state. It is terrible politics. It's the same thing we see. My wife's from California. She deals with that. Great place, but politics destroy it. And we're not going to get down the road of politics and how it destroys things. But Illinois passed a law called the PICA Act, P-I-C-A, over a weekend without any public oversight or a public review, which is illegal to do by state constitution, but they did it anyhow because they controlled all the bodies of the legislation and executive and whatnot, even the judicial branch. And it basically banned assault weapons in Illinois, and not just assault weapons, but they banned manufacture of parts. The manufacture, sale, possession, and distribution of assault rifle components is what was written in the law, and that was as far as the description went. And that's troubling because that's what we make. That's our bread and butter. So, and then there's also, they had instituted a state level FFL, which you had to have in addition to your federal firearms license. And the state level one, they could pull at any time. As far as I could tell, they didn't have to have any cause to get rid of it. And so you could manufacture parts and you could still maintain assault rifles, in their language, in the state, if you had an FFL, both the state and federal level one. But I could see where this was going because they'd already stacked the Supreme Court in the state, and then they have a state level FFL they pass some years back, and then they pass a law over a weekend by gutting a bill on insurance and shoving the language in, and it's all just a stacked deck. The whole system was rigged, so there was nothing we could do, and I was concerned even though we could technically still make parts, people wouldn't ship stuff to us anymore because they were concerned because the law was so nebulous. Some of our suppliers wouldn't send stuff to us. Some of the wholesalers we sell to wouldn't sell back to us, for things we needed. And that basically is the lifeblood of the company. If I can't get new rifles or new stuff or components to test and experiment and learn from, I can't do my job. So we were kind of in an unwinnable situation where we were afraid they would probably just pull the state level FFL at some point, which could still happen to anybody there. And we made the decision to move. North Charleston, very specifically, that was the only place we could find a shop that we were able to sign a lease. We looked at a couple other locations. We even had 2 other leases that we were signing, and then the deals fell through because a few of the landlords are flaky. It happens. I've signed quite a few leases in my life, and that's pretty typical. But yeah, that's pretty much the story. We have some friends down here. We have people in the industry we know, and we have a few family members down here on my wife's side. So we decided, well, it's best to have a support network if we're going to literally rip up everything we've done, sell our house, move our business, ship it all down here. At least we had people to help us getting set back up. So that's why we're in North Charleston. Laws are a lot better here. people love guns. That's kind of weird for me. Usually it's a 50-50 if people liked what you did or disliked what you did, and now everybody loves what we do down here. All right. Mike H. Why don't you have parts for the Tavor SAR anymore? So for those that don't know, there's the Tavor SAR, which is the original Tavor, and then the Tavor X95 was the kind of the upgrade replacement of it. So the Tavor SAR launched, I want to say it was like 12 plus years ago, and hasn't been made in a long time. I mean, we're approaching, I don't know, 8 years plus since they've made it. It might be a little less. I know there's been a few batches popped out here and there from IWI. The simple truth is there is no demand for the parts anymore. I know individually somebody may say, hey, I want to buy parts for my Tavor SAR. I'll buy everything you've got, and that's great. But parts that get made and sit on the shelf is money tied up on a shelf. And if I had my way and I won the lottery, I'd probably make anything I wanted and stock tons of it on the shelf for the day it came along that somebody wanted one, and that'd be great. But that's not the reality of running a company. Is you need cash flow. So when it comes down to it, a lot of the times it's just the parts aren't moving anymore, so we can't justify running another batch, because even though we might sell through those parts in 2 or 3 years, that money can be spent developing new products and manufacturing new products, or just making batches of existing products that, you know, we have a hard time keeping in stock because we just sell them so fast, and so we have to purchase larger and larger batches or manufacture larger and larger batches, you know, of subcomponents and all the stuff we do to assemble our products. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just the Tavor SAR parts just don't sell anymore, and when you've only got so many hours a day you can machine parts or mold parts, you know, for manufacturing, and you only have so much cash flow to do that, you got to pick and choose what is the priority. And unfortunately, as much as I love the Tavor SAR, there just isn't enough demand for the parts anymore to justify continuing production. So long story short, what you see on our web store now that's Tavor SAR specific, that won't fit on other guns, the butt pads, I think the top rails are gone. Any of that stuff, if you want it, now's the time to get it, because to be honest, I don't expect us to make any more of that stuff at this point, unless the Tavor SAR came back, which it won't, but if it did, we'd, you know, look at it again. All right, Chet F. What is the deal with the Prepper Gun Shop hybrid magazines? Who makes them? Why is your name on the packaging? Great question. And this goes into lessons learned when you're a business. So Prepper Gun Shop was a company that approached us when the Scorpion Evo came out, and there was huge demand for the magazines. The OEM magazines were hard to get. There was an issue with the clear ones, the feed lips cracking on them occasionally. So we worked with Prepper Gun Shop to design for them a magazine with steel feed lips, and we were the first one to get that developed. They were the first one to launch it. But not a lot of people knew who Prepper Gun Shop was, and they didn't have their own original products. So at the time, the owner asked me, he said, hey, Manticore Arms has a much better name recognition, I believe, than we do. Would you be okay if we, you know, they had not made a product yet. So they asked if they could use one of our barcodes from our barcode system and use our name on the packaging. And they were, you know, the agreement, they own the tooling to make those, and, you know, I don't. We've got some of the magazines here, but we don't sell them to the public. I just have them for testing and whatnot. And they manufacture them, they package them and everything, and then when we get the email, my magazine broke or whatever, or, you know, people having questions, how do I buy them from you? We have to point them towards them. That was just, I guess, to be honest, a mistake on my part of understanding branding and whatnot. At the time, I was excited to get those magazines out. It was the first time we'd done a magazine. It was something that I was very proud of, so I had no problem with our name on it. But in retrospect, I think it's very confusing for the consumer to understand it's not our product, you know, other than the design that I created. So actually, When it comes down to it, Prepper Gun Shop, I think they've run out of their most recent production run, and I need to reach out to them and see if we can ultimately get the packaging changed over, even if they keep the barcode, just so it's clear that it's their product, not ours. So yeah, sometimes you learn things that you just didn't think of, along the way. That's just running a small business. Prodigy Yahoo. How about parts for the Mac 90s, specifically non-AR stock adapters? Mac is spelled MAC-90. I assume what he means is the Mac 90 AKs, the Chinese-made ones, not the, Mac 9 or Mac 10, 11, the little submachine gun-ish things. But my answer would apply to both of those. So it actually really goes back to kind of the Tavora SAR. You need a certain amount of sales to justify manufacturing a part. With a Mac 90, a classic Chinese AK, and yeah, it may have the thumbhole stock on it, but with the Mac 90, there just isn't enough of a market for those. I mean, I don't even know if there's 1,000 of those in the country, and then you're assuming out of those 1,000 rifles that people would want to change the stock out. So it just there's just the cost to design the part is the same, whether it's 1,000 rifles or 100,000 it's going on. So it just becomes an issue of what is time best spent on. And I just don't see enough of a market there to justify the time for it. It's not something I have in-house, so I'd have to buy a Mac 90 just to do it, and they're not cheap guns. And honestly, I think most people with a Mac 90 probably want to keep it stock and not update it. It's kind of a collectible rifle at this point. To answer his question also, I think Stormworks might make those. Stormworks with a Z on the end. They make a lot of adapters for rifles and stocks. I would check with them and see if you can find one there. All right, page 2. We are slowly moving along here. Jacob H. Do you plan to make any more part upgrades for the Springfield Hellion? Some suggestions that could be looked into are an improved forend made out of aluminum, a fixed charging handle, an extended magazine release, flared magwell, co-witnessable flip-up sights, or an improved trigger. I think we already covered trigger, so we'll move on from there. And then ENS basically had a similar question. He has a Springfield Hellion set up for left-hand eject, and has our buttstock and enhanced bolt release on it, and fixes a lot of the gripes you had. Thank you. I'm glad our product can help you. He's asked if we'd make an aluminum foregrip and an improved charging handle. Doesn't get into details on what improvement. Yeah, so I'm actively looking at Hellion upgrades. We've obviously got the 3, the butt plate, the enhanced bolt release, and the safety levers, the metal safety levers that we make. And I am looking at all of those as potential options. There are reasons certain things may come before others or not get made. Just coming down to construction, I found a few things on the gun that I thought could be done, or things that could be taken apart that I thought could be easily done, and can't. That was a bit of a surprise. We'll see where we go on that. But yeah, I think the Hellion's got a lot of room to grow in the aftermarket, and I think there's a lot we can offer to that. So I am actively working on stuff. Actually, today, before I filmed this video, I was actively working on a Hellion-based project and component, working my way through it. So yeah, short answer is yes, we are working on Hellion parts. Pete from Illinois. Why the hell is ammo so expensive, and what can the new administration do to fix it? What is a way the Trump administration can reduce cost and increase innovation in firearms and accessory manufacturing? And then he asks also, and any question somebody had, we'll answer it today. Do you support Brandon Herrera for ATF director, and what should people do about it? And last thing, is a hot dog a sandwich? I would say a hot dog is not a sandwich. I would say it is a submarine or a hoagie, which would be a U-shaped piece of bread around filling or meat. Easy one first, right? So let's go into what can the new administration do? Because I think that's a great question. What can they do to reduce the cost of ammunition, firearms, everything that we all love? Reduce regulation. probably 50 to 70% of my work is actually compliance paperwork, either making the local, county, state, or federal government happy for some dumb thing, and I'm just going to call it dumb because that's what it is, some dumb thing that they want proven, and then it just goes into a bin and nobody even looks at it. All that stuff, just oh my God, I can't tell you how much paperwork I do. It is hard for a company to make a business when all they do is try to answer questions to government agencies. That takes away from time that can be used to generate new products, manufacture stuff, and make it all happen. So, sure, lowering taxes would be great. I wouldn't complain with that. But honestly, just reducing the bureaucratic state, and hopefully, not that I want to get political, but hopefully that's what we're seeing right now, is pulling the sheet back, kind of understanding what the bureaucratic state does. Because I think one thing people don't realize about government, we all complain about the efficiency of government, but it's why is government not efficient? It's because they're not beholden to anybody. Whereas you or I, if we don't do our taxes right or don't do them at all, we get in trouble. Who does the government answer to? I mean, in theory, the people through Congress and whatnot, but if Congress doesn't do anything about it, nothing happens. And I think pulling the curtain back that allows people who work in government to just hide behind the shield of I'm part of the big system, and make them personally accountable and care about what they're doing, care about where they're spending the money, care about what impact does it have when they create another form that I have to sign, or create another piece of paperwork that I have to do research on to fill out, and then have to go through some government website and get registered for that with my fingerprints and do all this and this and this, 5 steps. What is it actually accomplishing? What is the actual goal of that? If it's meant to keep things legal, okay, but why, why are we making some things legal or not? It gets into ITAR, a gun part, little gun part, like our switchback charging handle, exact same paperwork as selling a nuclear aircraft carrier to a foreign nation. It's ridiculous. And I think they finally gotten that one taken care of with EAR 99. Won't get into that in this question, but yeah, get rid of excess work and regulation, and companies can make more money. And then they can also lower the prices, which was the actual question. But it's easier to lower prices when you don't have to waste time doing other things. And then Brandon Herrera on the ATF director. So I read that question, and I don't know Brandon Herrera personally. I've seen his videos. I know he brought the 50 caliber AK to SHOT Show. His first year, that was when he got started and was suitcasing it, which you're not supposed to do, and got kicked out. And, it is what it is. My initial concern, and I think it's important I address this, not because I know the final answer here, but because I think it's important to be honest about what you think. My initial concern with Brandon as head of the ATF, if it would actually happen, was he seems to be a bit of a showman or like spectacle. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's his public persona. Now, the real Brandon is probably not that, he seems like an honest guy. He seems like he does care about gun rights. I think those are all great things. But I don't have enough information to judge beyond that and what I've seen in his videos, on YouTube or podcast or whatever. A friend of mine said, however, Brandon actually had been asked this exact same question. What would you do if you're head of the ATF? And he did answer that he actually likes where he's at right now in his career. He likes doing the podcasts and YouTube videos and all the social media, and I guess essentially being an ambassador or journalist for the gun industry. And I'm happy for him that he's found that he knows where his niche is and he knows where he best serves. I think he's generally a positive influence and hopefully gets people excited to get into guns in the industry. In the meantime, that Kash Patel, who's the interim director ATF, I think he's going to clean a lot of things up, and we'll see who ends up as a permanent director. But I think I think everything has worked out. You know, maybe it's karma or whatever force of the universe that Brandon's found where he wants to be, and that you know, Kash Patel is there, head of the FBI, interim head of the ATF, and can move some things around and make some things happen. One other thing I'll mention, if you want to understand what's going on with the ATF and the FBI a little bit, Four Boxes Diner is a great channel that breaks it down so that you can understand really what's going on. He's a lawyer, and I can't remember his name. Is it Mark Smith, I think? If you haven't checked out his channel, check it out. And he had a really good breakdown in the last week or two of what's going on with the ATF, and you know, what hopefully will be better for us than it being kind of weaponized against the industry in the last few years. All right, so that was the top of page 3. Daniel in Georgia. Thanks for the opportunity to send in questions, and also thanks for your work you have done to provide aftermarket support for the Steyr AUG. You're welcome, and thank you for being a customer, I assume. Can you provide any update on testing and evaluation regarding a charging handle option for the Steyr AUG A3 M2? Yes, I can. A little good, a little bad. So, am I working on an updated A3 M2 charging handle? Yes, I am. You can see here, that's a shuttle, that's a lug. They go together. How fancy is that, right? Got that. We got a metal prototype here, showing you some weird stuff going on there that I wasn't happy with, but we were trying to see if we could use the existing handle with a new shuttle. And then here's the original shuttle that's on the A3 M2. So for those who aren't familiar with the Steyr AUG, the Steyr AUG has 2 distinct types of charging handles in its life of evolution, I guess you'd say, of the different models as it's gone. So the A1, the A2, the USR, and the A3 M2 all have a charging handle shuttle, and this is the part that goes inside the receiver that moves back and forth, and then the handle pins on here. It has a big square handle with a little button on the back on these for all those models I just mentioned. The A3 and the A3 M1, which are the most recent ones since early 2000s, they have a shuttle more like this with these fingers. There's a pinhole running through it, and then the handle is a little curved back guy that can tilt over, and there's some reasons for why all that's that shape, but we don't need to go into that. So those 2 handles are not interchangeable. As you can see, this guy sticks up, this guy's way shorter, and that square charging handle will not take our switchback. And so we're looking at how do we adapt the switchback to the newest generation and also the A1, A2. I've been through a lot of generations of shuttle design here, trying to simplify it, sort out manufacturing, sort out installation, because that's a big one. I was trying to not make a new shuttle, but it just looks like that might be the best solution at the moment. And it's a complex problem. I wish they hadn't changed it back. I like the original square charging handle, but it makes it complicated, and unfortunately, just to be honest, it's gonna be more expensive because now we have to make this horrible little piece to adapt it. I've tried a bunch of options, and actually Mrs. Manticore had a great suggestion the other day on how to solve a problem. Once in a while, she'll do the thing, like usually she doesn't say anything to me. Once in a while, she'll walk by and I'll say, hey, what do you think of this? And she's not a gun parts person, really. You know, she's shipping and bookkeeping and helps with some of that, you know, keeping the shipping department running. And she said, well, what if you did this? And I was like, oh, that's such an obvious solution, but I just hadn't thought of it, you know, and like it just had never occurred to me. And so it seems to have worked that out, but there's still without getting too detailed, the square charging handle receivers, the slot angles way over. So what happens is even if we make a new shuttle, the handle's now angling down at a 45 degree, which is okay. But the A3 M2 also is cut so that handle can be folded up into a notch. So when you got the square handle, it's kind of tucked out of the way, doesn't hit you in the ribs or anything. And that has become a severe technical problem to making the handle work the way I want it to work, because I don't want it to get jammed up in the front position. And I will solve it. It's just going to take some time to figure out in an efficient manner. So I guess that's the best answer I can say, is it's actively being worked on. I've got active prototypes here that are being used and tested. I just don't want to release a product that doesn't do it right, the way I want it to work, so that it works well for people using it. So yeah, there's my, once again, long answer to a short question. But when you get into some of these things, there's technical reasons on it. When I got this question a week ago, I thought we were probably going to have the handle out pretty soon. Seeing some of the things I've seen more recently with some testing, it may be a little longer, but I'm going to crack this nut. All right. Dave Sewell asks, do you have any more parts for the CZ Bren 805 Generation 1? Short answer, no. 805 had a very short lifespan. It was a good rifle, but it almost immediately, I think within 2 years, got replaced by the Bren 2 and Bren 2 MS. The parts are not cross-compatible on those guns. They literally shrunk everything down. It's literally, if you took a Bren 805, the Bren 2 is literally, everything's been run through a 3D shrinker, and it's like 20% smaller to make it lighter and more handy. We've sold through those parts, and there are so few of those guns on the market. There's just no reason to make more parts for it. And I'm sorry if you have one and want parts. Unfortunately, that's just the lifespan of a gun sometimes. Bob N. Are compensators for Kel-Tec KSG 410 in your market plan? Short answer, no. Long answer is I find Kel-Tec a fascinating company. Andrew Kellgren, who's the owner, he developed the Grendel pistol back in the 80s. He's done a lot of stuff. As far as I can tell, Kel-Tec is his kind of play company. He's basically like, if I was retired on a big pile of money and just wanted to keep making gun stuff. And I would love to have met him. He was at SHOT Show when I was out there this year. He was there in the booth, but he was having a meeting, and I had to be somewhere else. I was hoping to actually get to talk to him just a little bit. This guy's just got crazy ideas. He thinks totally outside the box. But getting back to the question, we don't have samples of most of their guns in shop. We have one of their bullpups here, the .223 caliber one, just because I was really curious on how he had solved some problems. But I just don't think it's something we're going to do. And I don't know why. It's funny because I really am fascinated by their guns, but I'm not super excited about making aftermarket parts for it. And I don't really have an answer for that. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's I'm trying to lump my design on top of their design. If people have an interest in Kel-Tec aftermarket parts, let me know. But we rarely get a request for it. Maybe every couple of months we get a random one, and they're never the same part. So I haven't seen enough of a market there, and I don't know why. Maybe there's something specific about the gun or the company, or just we're not in contact with that audience. So yeah. Roberto F. Do you have anything for the FNP90? No, we do not. We should. We're sitting here in front of the gun closet, or the gun safe, one of them. And if anybody's wondering, these tags are just our hang tags, so we can track all the information on the gun. But there is a P90 right there with a Yankee Hill suppressor on it. I know there is a company that was making aftermarket charging handles. I don't know if they're even still around. That was some years ago. We could probably do a better top rail. They have their tri-rail with the sights in the front and the back. I've seen that. It's fine, but I'm sure we could make something there. So the only problem with the P90 is, if you notice our product line is rifle based. It's not really pistol based. Almost everything is for rifles, or an AR pistol is still an AR. And the reason is it's very hard to make parts for pistols. If you're not, you can make barrels, you can put muzzle brakes on it, you can put a red dot on it, you can make a little extended bolt catches, extended magazine releases. There's things you can do, but they're all like the same 5 parts for every gun, just modified for them. And now you're wondering, why am I talking about pistols? We're talking about the P90. Well, when you think about the P90, it's basically an upscaled pistol. It's a very rectangular, sleek platform that there's very little to change on it. The safety is really unique, and it works as well as you could want for that particular design. The stock pretty much is monolithic. There's very little to change in it. So yeah, other than like a charging handle, I mean, I guess you could make muzzle devices in their weird thread pattern, whatever it was, and a top rail. I can't think of anything else offhand. I guess, brass collectors, and I've seen those, but I can't think of anything else offhand to make for it. And if I can't think of at least like 3 parts for a gun, I usually just kind of move on, because I just feel it's smart to have a product line for guns, not just a product. So yeah, I guess that answers the question as best as I can. It's a little bit in the psychology of why I choose to design parts for something. I would honestly be happy to design stuff for the P90. So if anybody's interested in updated charging handles, or you think of something else that I missed, just shoot us an email and we'll take a look at it. All right, Lou S. My question is, would you rather be trapped in a room with R. Kelly or Diddy, or both? Oh boy, how do you answer a question like that diplomatically? One of them, I believe, was, and I didn't even look into this closely when I saw the question. I believe one of them has been charged but hasn't been gone to court for what he's been charged with, and the other one, I believe, was charged, and I don't know if he did time or fines or whatever it was. Both of them seem to have a thing for women and some weird power fantasies, I guess would be the politest way to put it. I think if I was locked in a room with either one of them, it probably wouldn't affect me, because I'm not a woman, and I don't mean that in any sexist way or anything. I'm just not, like, I'm not whatever their interest is or their power fantasy is. I mean, I guess the court system decides if they're guilty or not and gives them a punishment. And if it was just me locked in a room with a random dude or stuck in an elevator, I'm probably not going to dig into his personal history and just hope we both get out of being stuck in a room. And if we got to work together to do that, we do that. So hopefully that is an acceptable answer to a very, very different question. All right. We are on to page 4. So we're going to push through here and get this finished up. Tony from Georgia. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to ask some questions. You're welcome. I actually hope to do this more. If there's more questions, we'll do it in the future again. It's refreshing to hear from someone in the industry that I have personally been supporting for over 50 years. Well, I'm not 50 years old, so I'm assuming you're referring to the industry, but I appreciate that. Let's see. It's not very often that the makers/manufacturers care enough to even consider what the average consumer, i.e. the little guy, cares about. I'm going to address this because it's not really a question, but I think it addresses kind of why Manticore Arms exists. So back in the day, I was an architect, and I was interested in guns. I had guns, I shot them, I went to gun shows, things like that, but retro AR parts was actually a big part of what I did before I got into my own company, and just buying and selling them. And I was interested in the AUG. I mean, I saw Die Hard, I loved the gun, I couldn't afford one. Microtech Small Arm Research brought out their gun, and I bought one, and I saw there's people looking for brass deflectors, better charging handles for them, but nobody'd make them because there was a very small, relatively small amount compared to the AR-15 and AKs, which is where everybody else was focusing on the market. So I decided, well, nobody else is making parts for them. So, I mean, I guess I don't have any risk other than there just might not be enough people to actually buy the parts. I wasn't fighting against another company for that market share. And that's really how we got our start, was I thought, okay, this is something I like. This is a market space that nobody else is in, and I don't want to be an architect anymore, is really where it came to. I liked making gun parts. I liked the idea of creating something from nothing other than in my mind, and making it into something real. Like for me, I cannot describe the feeling of the first parts coming off a mold that I paid for with my life savings to make those first 2 parts, and you're holding it in the reel. And at that point, I didn't even care if they sold, if I lost everything. I had made a thing. I had created something of my own 100%, and I had put the money into it to make it happen. And that was the greatest feeling in the world. And a lot of days I still like recapturing that. Whenever we get the new parts in, I'm really excited to see them, from the mold shop that we use, or, if we're machining something, it comes off the machine and you're like, oh, wow, or just watching the process of it being made. Just, you can hear it in my voice that making something that's up here become reality is it's an awe-inspiring thing for me. So let's get down to his actual question. Any thoughts about entering into the world of revolvers? He's recommending a small and light speed loader for the Smith & Wesson Model 327 8-shot 357 Magnum revolver. Yeah, I've had some thoughts about that. So I've seen some, it's funny because all the speed loaders today are all kind of the same style. Different companies make them, but I've seen some older models. There were some really crazy ideas, speed strips would be a good example of that, that you don't see much anymore. But when revolvers were big, there was a lot of problem solving there. And I've seen some stuff that interests me. I'm trying to figure out a way to manufacture it economically, because a speed loader, you're talking, it's got to be sub $20. If somebody's going to carry 1 or 2 of these, they view it as an accessory. It's not the cost of the gun. So you got to figure out how to make it economically. But I think if I can figure out how to make it work, I have an idea for something that might be quite a bit different from everything else that's out there, which is always a sign of, I think, a good product, is if you're solving a problem in a different way. And it might not be for everybody, but it might solve it in a way that it works way better for somebody than the existing solutions. So yeah, in short, on the long plan, yes, I'd be interested in making speed loaders. It's just a matter of having the time to sit down and figure it out. Bruce F., will you please manufacture and sell a brass deflector for the X95? Problem solved. We are testing one right now. That one should have been out a long time ago, and I just kept forgetting about it. It's such an obvious thing. I just didn't even think about it until I get the email every couple of months, or a few a month, people saying, hey, can you make one of these? And yeah, so we're actively testing one. It's just a matter of how we're going to manufacture it. If it's going to be machined, molded, some other process. I typically lean towards those two because I feel those are the best quality products you get. But yeah, brass deflector is coming for the X95, which would also work on the Tavor SAR. So yes. Let's see. Jonathan J., I was wondering, are there any new products coming out for the TS12 or X95? Which I think I guess we didn't answer that yet. X95, so obviously the brass deflector, always looking for new things to do for the X95. It's the big gorilla in the room of bullpups, I would say. I think the Hellion's pulling up on it, but X95 had time on its side so far. So the TS12, I would love to make something else for it, but I don't know what to do. We've got the butt pad, we've got the charging handle, we've got the muzzle brake. Everything else, so we've had people say, hey, the release lever, the release button that allows you to rotate the cylinders on the front, can you make a better one, make one out of metal, or make a larger one, something like that? I can, but there's a problem with that. And the problem is you have to take the entire gun apart to put that part in, to get to the guts of how that all works. And I am not comfortable making a product that requires the end user to completely disassemble the gun with the possibility that things don't get assembled correctly again, that something could happen, if it's not assembled correctly, that there's potentially a safety risk. I've had products before where I had a great idea, but it's the same thing where if it's going to put the end user in a situation, and understand, end users come in, people who are buying our products come in all varieties. It can go from somebody who's spent their whole life working with firearms, taking them apart, fixing them themselves, to a guy who's literally never done it. And I don't want to put that guy who's never done it in a situation where he's put something together and he's risking his life. Or not even risking his life, but just risking he's assembled the gun in a way that won't work anymore. So yeah, that part, unfortunately, I'd love to do that one. It's not going to work, and I don't really see anything else on that particular gun that could be redone. We've had some people ask for aluminum forends, but I don't see what they would give that the existing forend doesn't already do. It's got M-lock slots on it and stuff, so I don't think there's any value added to that. If anybody has any ideas, if I've missed something, please let me know, because we call it our triad. If we've got all three in stock, everybody buys the muzzle brake, the charging handle, and the butt pad. It's just boom every time. So I would love to support that platform more, but I just don't see anything else at the moment that can be upgraded on that gun in a reasonable way. All right, we are down to the last question, just under an hour here, so I think we'll clock in at just an hour. Thomas K., what 44 Magnum lever action rifle is the most accurate? The Henry, the Marlin, or the Smith & Wesson? So I don't have direct experience with any of those firearms, especially in 44 caliber. I've shot lever actions. My wife owns one, but I can't give you direct advice on those three firearms from a personal firsthand perspective. What I can do, though, is I can break down what factors would lead to which one is going to be the most accurate. The first factor is ammunition. Better quality ammunition is going to give you better performance. And then also, if you've got 20 different brands of ammunition, and even if you have two rifles of the same brand, you're probably going to find one of those guns is going to shoot one brand slightly better than all the others, and same thing, the second one will find a different one of those 20 brands will shoot it a little better than all the others. So I would say in that case, that's just testing and finding which ammo your particular gun likes. The second part is barrel quality. There's not an easy way for me to say which is the best barrel. You hear stuff on the internet, but I don't have any specific answer towards that. But yeah, the best quality barrel is going to make for the most accurate rifle. If it's consistent, if it's manufactured well, the rifling quality, all that, that's going to make all other things being equal, make it work the same and shoot more accurately. The final factor would be the feeding of the rounds. Now, I know there are some variations on how various lever actions work on the mechanism, but generally it's they have a component that folds down, the round gets shoved, comes out of the feeding tube onto the tray, I guess you'd say. And I know that's not the technical term. I just haven't looked at a lever gun in a bit and don't remember it offhand. But that'll move up, and then the bolt loads the round in. So with some of those mechanisms, in theory, could, if they did something to the bullet itself and caused a gouge or a dent, that could affect accuracy. I don't know of any mechanisms that do that in a lever action that would specifically cause a problem, but yeah, there's that. And even between two rifles of the same manufacturer, if one has a sharp edge or something, that could affect it, gouges the bullet or whatever. But that'd be my best breakdown is do some research, see what people say about the barrel quality and then what ammunition they recommend. And I would imagine you will probably find some trends, especially since I believe, was it Marlin was bought out by Smith & Wesson? There was some deal that happened there recently, so it's just a matter of knowing who makes what and what they're doing to manufacture the barrels. So yeah, that's all our questions. I want to thank everybody for asking questions. Just so you know, that was we put out an email asking for questions, and also want to, for those people who've stuck around, point out, if you actually subscribe to our email, if you open our emails, regularly I try to put Easter eggs in there. Anybody who had answered the poll of Would you rather this be a video or an email? I actually gave a free sticker code for anybody who wanted to have it as a video to watch. So, we try to do that stuff. So if you stuck it out this long, thank you. And we look forward to doing Q&A number 2 with you.